Welcome to Managing the Future, the MIS podcast. Today, we're doing a deep dive into Module 5, Cybersecurity Overview. Now, this discussion is really designed to help you, especially if you're a Dr. Sampak College of Business student, but honestly, it's for all college students and future business professionals. We want to help you get a handle on these essential concepts in management information systems, particularly this crucial area of cybersecurity.
Exactly. Our mission really is to make these sometimes complex topics clear, engaging, and most importantly, relevant to your future careers. We want to break it down.
Yeah, make it stick, not just overwhelm you with tech jargon.
Right, because cybersecurity, it isn't just some IT department thing anymore. It's fundamental to business. It impacts every single professional. Doesn't matter what your major is.
Absolutely. So before we dive in, just a quick invitation to stay updated on future deep dives. Join our community. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow, share, and comment.
Yeah, your engagement really helps us bring more of this stuff your way.
Okay, so let's start with that big picture then. Why is cybersecurity just so critical for your business future? It's moved way beyond the server room, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of fascinating, actually, how central it's become. You look at job rankings, cybersecurity is consistently up there. And the reason, it's pretty simple. Everyone, individuals, small businesses, huge multinational corporations, we all rely so heavily on online data now.
You really do. Think about your own day, right? Banking, social media, shopping, course registration. It's all data flying around.
Exactly. And keeping that data safe and secure, well, that's become a primary concern in, well, almost all aspects of life today, which makes cybersecurity experts and, frankly, cybersecurity-aware professionals absolutely vital to our economy, our way of life.
So for you as future business leaders, understanding this landscape isn't just nice to have, it's foundational. You need this.
Precisely. So in this deep dive, we'll explore the different kinds of threats, the vulnerabilities that exist, those malicious exploits businesses face, and critically, how companies actually strategize to handle them. And just so you know, all the insights we're sharing today, they come from Richard Tedmon and Casey Wilhelm's 2024 textbook, Connect Master, Management Information Systems. It's published by McGraw Hill. Great resource.
Excellent. Good to know where this info is coming from. So who's actually steering the ship on this inside a company? Let's talk roles. The Chief Information Security Officer, the CISO, what's their deal?
Right, the CISO. Yeah, this isn't just a tech manager role. It's a critical executive position now. They often have a seat right at the leadership table. Their main job is developing and maintaining the organization's big picture security policies and processes.
So they're kind of translating the tech risk into business risk for the higher-ups.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
They oversee the security tools, they lead the response when inevitably something happens, and they enforce the security protocols, all about minimizing IT risks across the whole organization. Their decisions. Huge impact on the bottom line, on reputation.
Wow, that sounds like a heavy responsibility. What about new tools? Generative AI, Gen AI, it's everywhere. How does that fit into cybersecurity?
Gen AI.
Yeah.
It's a real double-edged sword in this field. Fascinating, really. On the plus side, it can create incredibly realistic, very up-to-date training simulations for cybersecurity pros.
Oh, interesting. Like practicing against fake attacks.
Exactly. Imagine practicing your defense against, brand new complex attack types in a safe virtual space before they hit you for real. That's a massive advantage for keeping skills sharp.
Okay, that's the good side. I can already sense a butt coming.
Got it. Experts are definitely warning that Gen AI can also be used maliciously. It can be used to develop really advanced, sophisticated attacks. Attacks specifically designed to slip past the current security measures we have.
So it becomes this high-stakes, constantly evolving game of cat and mouse.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay, this brings us nicely to the core pillars, the absolute fundamentals of cybersecurity, something every business student really needs to grasp. The CIA triad, and no, not that CIA. We're talking confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These are the main goals, right?
Yes. The CIA triad is absolutely foundational. Bedrock stuff. So first up, confidentiality. This is all about protecting data, information, systems, making sure essential info only gets to the right people, and just as importantly, is kept away from the wrong people.
Like customer credit card details or maybe a company's secret formula?
Exactly. Things you don't want getting out. Data encryption is a really common tool here. Think of it like a digital lock and key.
Okay, so keeping secrets, secret. Got it. What about the integrity?
Integrity. This means maintaining the consistency, the accuracy, and the dependability of data. You need to be sure that the data hasn't been tampered with or altered, either while it's moving or while it's stored. Unauthorized changes are the enemy here.
Like financial records, maybe? You need to trust those numbers haven't been messed with.
Precisely. Or product designs, medical records. You need to trust they are what they're supposed to be. Things like strict access controls, file permissions, version controls, ways to track changes and rollback if needed. Those help maintain integrity.
Makes sense. And the last one, availability. Seems kind of obvious the system needs to be working, but is there more to it?
There is, yeah. Availability means ensuring data and systems are accessible and functioning when they're needed. It's not just about the server being plugged in. It includes maintaining the hardware underneath, making sure the operating system is working right, got its updates, and having enough communication bandwidth.
Right, because if everything's perfectly secure and accurate, but nobody can actually log in or use the system...
Your business grinds to a halt, exactly. Yeah. So availability is just as critical as the other two.
Okay, so the CIA triad tells us what we're trying to achieve. But how we protect data often depends on, well, where it is at any given moment. Data isn't static, right?
That's a really important point. Data exists in, broadly, 3 different states, and the risks are different for each one. First, there's data in transit. This is data that's actively moving, going across networks, or maybe just sitting temporarily in your computer's RAM.
Like when I type my password into a website.
Exactly. Or your account number, username. That data is in transit. Even though it might not be stored permanently anywhere during that moment, it absolutely needs protection while it's on its journey.
Okay, so emails, online transactions, that kind of thing. Then there's data at rest.
Right. Data at rest is probably what most people picture. It's data sitting in computer storage, on a hard drive, a server, maybe in the cloud. It's usually not being actively changed.
So files, databases.
Yeah. And the main ways to protect this are strong encryption and things like hierarchical password protection, making sure only authorized people can get to it or change it.
And the third state, data in process.
Data in process is data that's actively being, processed by a computer. Used in calculations, being manipulated.
Yeah.
It's usually held temporarily in what's called volatile storage, like RAM, while the computer's working on it.
Like calculating my bank balance when I log in, or running a big spreadsheet analysis.
Perfect examples.
Yeah.
And because it's actively being worked on, it presents its own unique attack surface, its own risks that need managing.
Okay, this leads us to another really crucial distinction, the terms. Threats, vulnerabilities, and exploits. People often use them interchangeably, but they mean different things, right? And business pros need to know the difference.
They absolutely do. Getting this clear is key. So a threat is basically an event that has the potential to cause loss or damage to an asset. Think of it as the danger itself. Like a hurricane is a threat to a coastal building.
Okay, the potential danger. So the vulnerability is...
The vulnerability is the weakness.
Yeah.
It's a flaw in your system's security procedures or design. So in our analogy, the vulnerability is the weak roof on that coastal building.
Gotcha. Hurricane is the threat, weak roof is the vulnerability, which makes the exploit.
The exploit is how a bad actor actually takes advantage of that vulnerability. It's the action of leveraging the weakness. So the hurricane hitting that weak roof and causing the damage, that's the exploit.
Okay, threat, potential danger, vulnerability, weakness, exploit, using the weakness.
Exactly. And we see real-world examples all the time. Remember the Under Armour MyFitnessPal breach back in 2018?
Vaguely, yeah. Big one, wasn't it?
Huge. Usernames, emails, passwords for 150 million users got compromised. Hackers exploited a vulnerability in their system. Or there was that incident in 2017. Russian actors reportedly targeted the U.S. energy grid, gaining access to control systems. That's exploiting vulnerabilities at a critical infrastructure level.
Scary stuff. Those examples highlight external threats, hackers trying to get in from outside. But sometimes the call is coming from inside the house, right? Internal threats.
You hit on a really critical and often uncomfortable point for organizations. We tend to focus on the external threats, malware, ransomware, phishing attacks, DDoS things launched by outsiders. But internal threats, those originate from within the organization, and they can be accidental. An employee clicks a bad link without realizing, or, sadly, sometimes they're intentional.
And an insider, that's not just the classic movie trope of the disgruntled employee planning revenge.
Oh, it's much broader than that. An insider, in cybersecurity terms, is pretty much anyone who has, or maybe had in the past, authorized access or deep knowledge of an organization's IT resources.
So current employees, former employees.
Yep. Also contractors, vendors, anyone who gets a badge and access. Even people privy to sensitive info like cost structures or company strategy. And these threats can be intentional malice, yes, but also unintentional errors, collusion with external attackers, or even risks introduced through third-party partners who have access. It's a complex, often harder to detect problem.
Wow, yeah, that's a much wider net than I had initially thought. Okay, let's quickly run through a few specific pervasive cybersecurity threats, just so our listeners recognize the names and sort of the basic mechanism.
Good idea. A really common one is social engineering. This isn't really a tech hack, it's a people hack. Criminals use psychological manipulation. They trick people into willingly giving up confidential info or performing actions they shouldn't.
Like those fake emails pretending to be from your bank or the CEO.
Exactly. Exploiting trust, urgency, or just lack of awareness. It's incredibly effective.
Okay, hacking the human. What about ransomware? That seems to be constantly in the news.
Ransomware is nasty. It's malware that gets onto your system and encrypts your data files, locks them up tight. You can't access them unless you pay the attackers a ransom, usually in cryptocurrency, for the decryption key. It's basically a digital hostage situation. Can absolutely cripple a business.
Yikes. Okay, and you mentioned malware generally. That covers a lot, right?
It does. It's the umbrella term for malicious software. Underneath it, you have things like computer viruses. These need a host program to attach to, and they replicate themselves when that program runs. They need human action to spread, usually. Trojan horses. These look legitimate, like useful software, but they secretly contain malicious code that executes unwanted activities, stealing passwords, deleting data, opening backdoors. Unlike viruses, they don't replicate themselves.
So they sneak in disguised as something else.
Right. Then there are rootkits. These are really stealthy. They hide deep in the operating system, often activating on reboot. They can let attackers install rogue files, take remote control, cover their tracks. Very hard to detect. And keyloggers. Surveillance tech, basically. It records every single keystroke you make on a keyboard. Passwords, messages, confidential info, all captured.
Great, that's a scary list. It really does sound like this constant battle. Attackers trying to get in, defenders trying to keep them out, or clean up the mess. So how do businesses actually manage all this strategically?
That's where strategic cybersecurity management frameworks come in. A really crucial one is the plan, protect, respond cycle. Think of it as a company's overarching blueprint, a continuous loop for dealing with these risks and threats.
Okay, plan, protect, respond. Let's break that down. What's in the plan phase?
Planning is about preparation and foresight. The organization looks at the threat landscape, tries to understand what threats are most likely to target them, and assesses its own current vulnerabilities. Where are we weak? What's coming at us?
Makes sense. Then protect.
Protect is where you implement the safeguards based on that plan. You put up the defenses, firewalls, access controls, security policies, employee training, all designed to limit the impact if something does happen, reduce the attack surface.
And then inevitably sometimes things do get through. That's respond.
Exactly. The respond phase kicks in when a cybersecurity incident is detected. It's about having procedures ready to go. This includes rapid mitigation, stopping the attack from spreading further, and then effectively resolving the incident, minimizing damage, and learning from it.
Now, a question students might have is, why don't companies just implement everything, max out security everywhere? But it's not that simple, is it? There's a cost involved.
You nailed it. It's a business decision like any other. It involves cost-benefit analysis and risk management. Implementing every conceivable security measure could be prohibitively expensive, and the cost might vastly outweigh the actual risk of a specific threat. A key concept here is probable maximum loss, or PML. Companies try to calculate this. What's the highest realistic financial cost if this specific threat materializes, if this breach occurs?
So they're weighing the cost of the security measure against the potential cost of not having it.
Precisely. It's Risk Analysis 101 applied to cybersecurity.
Are there defined steps for doing this analysis?
Yes. Generally, there are about 5 key steps businesses go through. 1. Assign values to information assets. What's this customer database actually worth? What's the value of this intellectual property? This can be tricky. 2. Estimate potential losses per security risk. If this system gets hit by ransomware, what's the downtime cost, the recovery cost, the reputational damage cost? 3. Estimate the likelihood of each specific risk or breach actually happening. Is this a common attack vector for our industry? 4. Based on loss estimates and likelihood, create a range of potential costs to the organization. What's the expected financial impact per year, say? And 5. Make decisions. Based on all that analysis, decide which countermeasures are appropriate, which policies to implement, and what level of risk you're willing to accept.
Could you give a quick example, maybe for that small online shoe business we mentioned?
Sure. Let's say their customer database gets breached. Step 1, value. It's high, includes contact info, purchase history, maybe partial payment info. Step 2, losses. Cost to notify customers, legal requirement. Potential fines, call center costs, huge loss of customer trust, customers going elsewhere. Step 3, likelihood. Maybe medium-high if they haven't updated their web security. Step 4, potential cost range. Could be tens of thousands, even crippling for a small business. Step 5, decision. Okay, investing $6 in better database security and web application firewalls makes financial sense compared to that potential loss. Or inventory manipulation if someone hacks in and changes stock levels. The loss is direct financial loss from ordering wrong stock or missing sales. You analyze that risk versus the cost of better access controls.
That makes it much clearer, tying it to tangible business impacts.
Oh.
Okay, beyond internal planning cycles and risk analysis, there are wider frameworks. You mentioned the NIST cybersecurity framework earlier. What exactly is that?
Right. NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, their cybersecurity framework is a really important piece of voluntary guidance for organizations. It's not a law you have to follow in most cases, but it provides a common language and a structured approach for developing cybersecurity policies and managing risk. It helps everyone get on the same page, IT, management, even external partners.
And it has those 5 core functions: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Sounds a bit like the plan, protect, response cycle, but more detailed.
It is, yeah. They map quite well. Let's quickly touch on each. Identify.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is about understanding your environment. What assets do you have? What are the risks? It covers things like asset management, risk assessment, governance, knowing what you need to protect. Protect, PR. This is about implementing the safeguards. Access control, data security, security training, putting the defenses in place. Detect, DE. This is about finding intrusions quickly. How do you spot anomalies? Continuous monitoring, analyzing logs. Seeing the attack as it happens or shortly after. Respond, RS. What do you do when you detect something? Response planning, communication, internal and external. Mitigation, analysis, improvements. Taking action, recover, RC. And finally, how do you get back to normal? Recovery planning, improving systems based on the incident, communication with stakeholders, building resilience, and ensuring business continuity.
That seems like a really solid, comprehensive framework for any organization to adopt or adapt. So thinking practically now for managers, what are some common cybersecurity tools or measures they might implement based on these frameworks?
Okay, yeah, getting practical. Management will often approve or direct the implementation of things like firewalls. These are like digital gatekeepers controlling network traffic coming in and going out based on security rules. Intrusion detection systems, IDS. These monitor network or system activities for malicious actions or policy violations. They detect and alert. Intrusion prevention systems, IPS. These go a step further than IDS. They not only detect, but can also automatically block or prevent the detected threat. And, of course, something we see everywhere now, multi-factor authentication, MFA. Adding extra layers of proof beyond just a password like a code from your phone or a fingerprint.
MFA is huge now. Okay, so if a company wants to create a formal cybersecurity plan, maybe following NIST or just their own process, what are the essential steps?
It generally follows a logical progression. Around 7 key steps usually cover it. 1, assess the landscape. That risk assessment we talked about. Understand your specific threats and vulnerabilities. 2, define goals and develop policies. What are you trying to achieve? Write down the rules. 3, identify and enact IT defenses. Choose and implement the right tools, firewalls, MFA, etc. 4, create incident response and recovery plans. What do you do when the worst happens? How do you get back up? 5, address legal and compliance. What regulations do you need to follow? GDPR, HI, ETA. 6, train your people. This is so critical. Make sure everyone understands the plan and their role in it. Humans are often the first line of defense, or the weakest link.
Yeah, training seems key.
Absolutely. And 7, implement continuous monitoring. Threats change constantly, so you need to keep watching, testing, and updating your defenses. It's never done.
Okay, step 3 mentioned enacting defenses, often involving software. How should businesses approach acquiring and implementing cybersecurity software? Just buy the fanciest package.
If only it were that simple. No, it requires careful consideration. Key things to think about are, first, a real needs assessment. What problems are you actually trying to solve? Don't buy features you don't need. Second, budget and cost analysis. What can you realistically afford, not just for purchase, but for ongoing maintenance and training? Third, research and selection. Look at different options. Commercial software versus open source. What fits your needs and budget best? Read reviews, maybe do pilot tests. Fourth, vendor evaluation. Does the vendor have a good track record? What's their support like? Are they likely to be around long term? And finally, plan for continuous deployment and maintenance. Software needs updates, patching, configuration checks. It's an ongoing process.
Right, it's not a one-time purchase.
Okay, let's talk about identity verification. We mentioned MFA. What are some common ways organizations confirm you are who you say you are, beyond just that simple password? Yeah, the password alone is increasingly seen as insufficient. Organizations use a mix of methods, often layered together. Two-factor authentication, 2FA, is a subset of MFA, usually meaning password plus one other factor, like a code sent via SMS. Knowledge-based authentication, KBA. Those security questions like, what was your first pet's name? Although these are becoming less popular as answers can often be found online. Multi-factor authentication, MFA. The broader category, requiring two or more different types of proof. Something you know, password, something you have, phone token, or something you are, biometrics. Biometric verification, using unique physical traits, fingerprints, facial recognition, iris scans, increasingly common on smartphones, for example. Token-based authentication, using a physical device like a USB key or a software app that generates time-sensitive code synchronized with the server.
So lots of ways to add layers. Shifting gears slightly, what are some of the big emerging trends in cybersecurity that future business leaders listening should really keep an eye on?
Well, we already touched on generative AI's evolving role, both for defense and attack. That's huge. Another trend is towards outcome-driven metrics, ODMs. Moving beyond just counting how many firewalls you have to measuring the actual effectiveness of your security in achieving business outcomes, like reducing breach impact. There's a much bigger focus now on security behavior and culture programs, trying to make security part of everyone's job, building that human firewall through awareness and positive reinforcement. Also, identity-first approaches, recognizing that managing who has access to what is maybe the central challenge, especially in cloud and hybrid environments. Identity becomes the new perimeter. And of course, ever-increasing data privacy awareness and regulation worldwide. Consumers and governments are demanding better stewardship of personal data.
Interesting. Identity is the new perimeter. I like that. What about specific types of attacks or environments that are becoming more prominent?
Two that are definitely worth highlighting are supply chain attacks and the challenges of hybrid environments. A supply chain attack is insidious. The attacker doesn't target you directly. They compromise one of your trusted third-party vendors or suppliers, someone who has legitimate access to your systems or data. They use that trusted connection to get in.
Ooh, like hacking the supplier to get to the main company.
Exactly. It exploits that trust relationship. Really hard to defend against sometimes. And hybrid environments. Most companies now use a mix of their own on-premises servers and cloud-based services. This gives lots of flexibility and scalability, which is great. But it also creates a more complex security landscape. You have data moving between environments, different security controls in different places. Managing security consistently across that hybrid model is a major challenge.
Yeah, more places for things to potentially go wrong. Okay, last big topic, cybersecurity laws. This can feel overwhelming, but what are maybe the key laws federally in the U.S. and maybe an international example that students should just be aware exist?
Definitely good to have some awareness. In the U.S., at the federal level, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, CFAA, is a big one. It basically prohibits accessing computer systems without authorization or exceeding authorized access and causing damage. It's the main anti-hacking law. The Electronic Communications Protection Act, ECPA, provides protections for wire, oral, and electronic communications while they're being made, in transit, and when stored. Within ECPA, Title II is the Stored Communications Act, SCA, which specifically makes it illegal to access stored electronic communications, like emails on a server, without authorization.
Okay, those cover core hacking and communication privacy. What about internationally? GDPR is the one everyone talks about.
Absolutely. The General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR from the EU, has had a massive global impact. It sets strict rules for how companies must protect the personal data of anyone in the EU, regardless of where the company is based. It includes rights for individuals, like the right to access or delete their data, and mandates strong security measures and breach notifications. It really set a high bar worldwide.
And maybe a state-level example?
Sure, states are active too. California's SB 327, for example, focuses on the security of Internet of Things, IoT devices. It requires manufacturers of connected devices sold in California to equip them with reasonable security features appropriate to their function and the data they handle. It's an attempt to address the notoriously poor security of many smart devices. Shows how laws are trying to keep up with technology.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground today. From those core CIA principles and the different states of data, through all sorts of threats and exploits, to how businesses strategize with planning cycles, risk analysis, the NIST framework, then practical measures, trends, and the legal side.
It really underscores the point, doesn't it? Cybersecurity is just woven into the fabric of modern business. For every future professional, especially in management and related fields, understanding these concepts isn't just for the IT folks anymore. It's truly foundational knowledge for navigating your career.
Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Module 5, Cybersecurity Overview. We really hope this has helped clarify some of these complex but vital topics and given you, our listeners, plenty to think about as you move forward in your studies and careers.
Definitely. And before we sign off, we've got a question for you to ponder. Thinking about this whole ever-changing landscape of cyber threats we've discussed, maybe Gen AI, supply chain attacks, the insider threat, what's one surprising takeaway you have from our chat today? Something that you think will most impact your future career in business, and why?
We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts on that. Drop them in the comments below. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share this deep dive if you found it valuable. Join the conversation in the comments. Let's keep learning and growing together.
Thanks for tuning in.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.